Hello, this is Everything Entertainment, and this is my digital circus episode 8 review. Episode 8 is another great installment from Digital Circus. However, if the previous episode was about diminishing or at least delaying theories, then this episode delivers what we expected and more. The episode reveals Kane's origin straightforwardly. Cain and Abel were artificial intelligence, specifically creative AI capable of generating their own ideas and creating within a program by employees from the CNA company. I believe Cain and Abel were most likely created for entertainment because otherwise, why would they have such so much information about circus unless entertaining people? Caine was fairly successful attempt at that. However, Caine was locked away because Scratch, who led the creation of Caine alongside Kinga and others, deemed it too strange to be considered a success. We learned that either Scratch was a genius beyond others, or the tumor in his head made Caine seem incompetent and wrong. Whether by choice or accident, Caine, the red dot, ended up consuming Abel, the blue dot, and merging into one, creating the digital circus. We then get a flashback to the first members of the digital circus, and as expected, Kinga was among the earliest arrival. We also see Kinga's wife Queenie as one of the first in the circus, and possibly Scratch, who is most likely the dark character. After revealing the initial cast in the digital circus and the unfortunate abstraction of the cast, the last of whom was Queenie, Kinga is left alone until Ragnar appears. The scene then shifts to the present day, where the main cast is filling down after episode 7. Drax tries to break the silence by acting out of his character, but Zubul isn't having it. Zubul is angry that Drax pressed the button last episode, and Drax correctly says it doesn't matter, because he's right. None of the events from episode 7 matter. Sentiment Gango agrees with. What makes this scene great is that Gango, known as the sad one, is that the one boosting morale. Now, instead of Zubul comforting Gango like in episode 6, Gango is comforting Zubul in episode 8. With with that support, Zubul backs Jax, who has stayed with the group instead of wandering off and possibly abstracted. Since the cast has accepted that leaving the circus is impossible, they might as well accept their fate and support each other. Kane, on the other hand, is going downhill, with Bubble rage baiting him into breaking. That's no exaggeration. Kane develops a complex, believing he's in control and can do whatever he wants. With Kane's newfound I don't care attitude, he decides to confront the cast and force them into one of his adventures. The best part about this scene is the sequence of events. The cast notices the glitching circus, but doesn't consider why it's happening. Jax is the first to notice Kane's change, followed by Pomni and Zilbul, stunned reactions when Kane asks who's in charge, and Kane breaking down how he feels to the cast, insisting they join his adventure or face the consequences. Was a powerful way to show how serious the scene was. After King's threat, he then showed the cast what will happen if they don't comply in a form of a song. It's a banger. The song simply Kane flaunting his power over everything in the digital circus, and no one can stop him. It's a great song with awesome lyrics, especially Kane's line, "What a goddamn shame." The difference from when he said "ass" in episode 6 is that this was intentional and not a joke. showing his power subtly, making a big fuss without making a big fuss. It's a great moment of showing, not telling. With Caine on a power trip and doing whatever he pleases, we then see the cast hiding from him, or more accurately, trying to cope with the situation. Jax even stays in character unnoticed, highlighting how beaten down they are. Honestly, this scene feels a bit slow since it mainly dumps information on us. The key takeaway is that everyone knows Kinga is the best character, whether or not he wears the bucket. But on a serious note, the focus is on Jax. Yes, the plan to defeat Caine was important, but it was what we expected, using imagination to fight him. The only difference is that Kinga will need his imagination and a computer to do so. Jax is the most important here, because he must accept that everything happening is real. The fact that he's visibly freaking out and everyone notices it means he can't hide his discomfort. So far, I predicted a lot of what happened because the show has spelled everything out, but I have no idea what's next for Jax. That's fantastic storytelling. Now that the plan to defeat Caine was in motion, Palmy used her imagination to get the computer to Kinga while everyone else distracted Caine with Jax. Palmy was able to get the computer to Kinga and assist them in distracting Caine. Where we get the crash out scene, and I mean almost everyone crashes out. Caine Caine knows how fake the cast is and acts wants to search for Kinga. Just so Palmy can crash out on Caine by speaking the truth and sharing her opinion on Caine, distracting Caine in the process. The rest of the cast follow suit, telling Caine how they honestly feel about Caine and his actions, leading Caine to breaking down, giving us the best scene of the episode because of how the scenes reflect all the characters involved. Caine torture scene is the best scene of the episode and is a personal nightmare for all the characters. Tommy's was personal to her, getting attacked by Gummy Goo, who was supposed to understand her pain, but was now hurting her, taking a moment they once had and dirtying the memory of it. Ragados was straightforward, stabbed by knives while at a dinner table with a family. This represents Ragados' clear problems with her murder and the attacks by said murder. The knives hitting Ragados are not supposed to do physical damage, but psychological damage, representing the pain her family has caused her, especially from her mother, who was abusive and, from Ragados' perspective, did not care about her at all. Gangles was complex since she was depressed throughout the show. She was surrounded by many masks, which was used to attack Gangle's complex emotions. Now the truck hitting Gangle is complex, but if I have to guess why the truck hitting Gangle, it must be after Gangle got out of work and became hospitalized. While in the hospital and clearly depressed, she was giving a head consult to pass the time and ended up in the circus. That's more or less my educated guess on why Gangle got hit by the truck in her nightmare domain. Zubus were painful to watch because she was tormented by being surrounded by toy-like body pieces, a clear representation of how she never felt right with the body she had. From what I know, Zubu was suffered from body dysmorphia while in a show from episode 1 all the way up to episode 7, where she finally felt like herself. Her suffering was to drown in a mountain of body parts while surrounded by mirrors reflecting her, being forced to look at herself and hate how she looks. She would therefore hate herself in the process. Jax was the most obvious and most shocking to me. Surrounded by those he deemed as friends, those being Cosmo, Ribbit, and Pomni. It started simple with Jax being mocked by a random crowd that turned into his friends. His friends then proceeds to rip the skin off his body and continues to mock him for his vulnerability. Jax doesn't want to be mocked by his friends, especially when he is vulnerable, or for his real self to come to life and be rejected by them. We didn't get to see Kinga's torture scene, but I imagine it will involve Queenie in some way. Similarly, in episode 3, and that would have been so long, but so cool to see. After Caine finished tormenting the cats, he returned them to the circus to express his frustration. How, after torturing them, from his perspective, they are the ones tormenting him, telling them he was never asked to be created, and all he wanted was to fulfill his perfect. His wrath was evident until he was accidentally deleted by Kinga. And yes, it was an accident. His last was being wait. With Caine being deleted and dead as of now, the circus started glitching and breaking down, with Zubal's last line being "Holy shit." With the circus areas being broken, this leaves a ton of options for the cast. The circus is now out of Caine's control. Whether this is a good or bad situation is up the next episode to decide, and I am excited to see. Overall, I enjoyed this episode without a doubt. I give it a 9 out of 10, up there with episode 6 as the best episode of the series. Caine was the highlight of this episode. We all knew that Caine would turn evil. This is shown by Caine not understanding the cast or not wanting to. No matter how hard he tries, he doesn't fully understand what makes them happy and how to handle human social cues. Combined with Caine's last adventure being a failure in the cast's eyes, led to Caine crashing out and gaining a god complex. Combined with his arrogance, selfishness, and need for approval, King was always going to be outside the cast because he chose not to understand them. He doesn't talk to them like equals, but like a necessity. I sympathize with Cain, but I don't pity him. If he had just talked and bonded with the cats, then accepted their complaints, would have avoided his own demise. He was even doing some self reflection on his actions, but because he chose now of all times to go on his power trip, he wasn't in a position where he and the crew could talk normally and openly. He could have avoided his own demise in this episode if he had just answered the questions at least, but he chose his way like always, and he paid the price for it with his life. Caine was a great villain for this episode. He's sympathetic enough to feel bad about his death, but happy it happened, because he is a lot more self aware than we thought, given how he tortured the cast. So it may be the best that he was accidentally deleted by Kinga. Now, to talk about the negatives, and the only negatives I could think of are everything that happened after they came back from their adventures forced by Caine. The sequence of events was good, but not great. The solution of defeating Caine was way too quick and easy, which makes it confusing why Kinga or anyone before had never thought about this. It felt like the episode needed a bit more runtime, so they added obvious scene of Palmer getting the computer for Kinga and the rest distracting King by letting him abuse them. This is a nitpick because after we got Pomni back with the cast, we get back to the episode being great again. So it's more or less a weak segment of the episode, since the rest of the episode is a 10 out of 10. With that out of the way, I am excited for the finale that's coming out in June. This episode gave us everything we expected, and while subverting my expectations, the cast called Jack's actions out, yet still wanted him around. Caine developed a god complex, but could still have been saved if things had been different. Things were changing, but we don't know what will happen next, and I can't wait to see the next episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.